Redline Logbook here with part 2 of the Hestia Familia. So shortly after the creation of the Hestia Familia and Belle's now goal to become equal with Ai so he can then confess to her, his rapid growth was allowing him to go deeper into the dungeon. He was regularly going down to levels 5, 6, 7 and such in the dungeon. Now, this scared Ina, his guild advisor, because when adventurers usually start dying. The monsters here, like killer ants, usually get to the adventurers early on before they can continue their growth. As such, she advised that he get help. Both luckily and unluckily for Belle, this is when he happened to run into Lily. Lily is a prum who happened to be born from two members of the Soma Familia. This is unfortunate for her because both her parents were addicted to Soma's liquor. As such, they had no interest in actually raising her, even as a baby. And so they would abandon her to go off into the dungeon, where they happened to die before Lily was even old enough to remember their faces. Lily was somewhat lucky because she was actually taken care of directly by God Soma. He personally took care of her as an infant all the way up until she was old enough to basically run around and do things for herself. So 5, 6 years old. She continued to live within the Soma Familia, basically doing small jobs around the place for food. When she came of age, around 9 or 10, she was then made an official member of the Familia. She was then allowed to drink Soma's wine once, and was completely intoxicated by it, and was memorized by it. In her desperate need to get more, she decided to go off into the dungeon, where she immediately was destroyed by kobolds and goblins. Lily had no chance of survival and almost died. She quickly realized that she was not meant to be an adventurer. Fortunately for her, the wine isn't like a drug where it's permanently addictive. Eventually, the effects wear off, and you get your mind back, and you are able to think reasonably. And so Lily wasn't desperate to get the wine anymore, she just wanted to earn money. This did not go well, because she decided to become a supporter, because she just wasn't cut out to be an adventurer. And as a result, she was consistently beaten and robbed by the Soma Familia adventurers she went into the dungeon with. They would accuse her of stealing, cheating, not pulling her weight because she was a supporter, and basically getting any excuse they could to strip her of any bit of money they could. This led to Lily's complete and utter hatred for adventurers. Just by being an adventurer, you are now considered evil by Lily. Of course, she ran away from the Familia, went off to live with an old couple and work at their flower shop. The old couple actually treated her like family, and she actually began to live a pretty nice life as a live-in employee of the flower shop. Unfortunately, the Soma Familia eventually found her, destroyed the flower shop, beat up the old man, and made sure the old couple knew they were there because of Lily. As such, the old couple rejected Lily and basically told her to leave. As such, Lily had no choice but to return to the Familia. Now, this doesn't mean she had to work with them, she just had to show up constantly to their meetings whenever they had them to make sure that she was still accounted for. Officially, Lily moved out of the Familia home into an apartment run by a gnome. This was perfect for Lily because the first floor of the apartments was an item shop run by that very same gnome. And so, this is where Lily, this thief and scammer, was born. Lily would become a freelance supporter, where she would just stand by the dungeon and solicit her services as a supporter to any adventurers without one. Now, these adventurers would continue to treat Lily like trash, just like the Soma Familia ones did, because all supporters are seen as trash by most adventurers. But that did not matter, because Lily wasn't doing it to make a little coin as a supporter. What she would do is she'd find out the most valuable items these adventurers had, steal them at the opportune moment, and then use her magic to disappear, so she would be gone and they'd never know. Her magic is known as Cinderella. It is a magic that allows her to transform herself into any living creature that is roughly her size. So she can make herself look like any other prum, she can make herself look like a different species that just happens to be short or a child, like an elf or animal person, and she can even transform into small monsters like a mirage. Now, she doesn't gain their strength or powers, unfortunately. It's just a disguise ability. But that was enough for Lily because she would transform while being part of this party that she was stealing from, undo the magic whenever she stole the items, and then redo the magic again, disguising herself as a male prum to sell the items to her gnome landlord. The reason why Lily was doing all this was for the simple fact that she was trying to save up enough money to buy her freedom. The cost of leaving the Soma Familia was 10 million vales. And so for the next 5 years, Lily continued to scam every adventurer she could, stealing their goods and selling it to earn that 10 million. That is until one day she scammed the wrong man, Gegrigish. After stealing his shit and bailing, he discovered that she had shapeshifting magic. He saw it, and then he knew Lily was the real culprit that stole from him, and not the other prum that he assumed it was. He tracked Lily down and actually chased her down in a back alley, where she ran into Belle. And this was the first meeting of Belle and Lily. Belle immediately pulled out his knife to defend Lily from Geb, and when Geb asked if they were accomplices, his response was, "No, I'm protecting her because she's a girl." Luckily for Belle, Ryu showed up and scared Geb away, but not before Lily got to see the Hestia knife, which was engraved with a Hestis symbol, and so Belle became Lily's new target. Literally the next day, while Belle was on his way to the dungeon, Lily approached him. Now she disguised herself as a Sheenthrop, which is a dog person, and she convinced him to be his supporter. This was a very awkward experience for the both of them, because Lily, once again, hates adventurers and was treated like shit by them constantly, and was also planning on, robbing Belle, but Belle treated her as an equal. He would always split the reward equally, 50-50, and he'd do everything in his power to make sure they were, a team. While Belle ended up experiencing awkwardness for the simple fact that Lily could not hide the fact that she absolutely hated adventurers. She didn't say it outright at that point while she was trying to scam him, but her actions, her behavior, the way she would look at him sometimes in just absolute disgust. Belle could clearly tell that Lily was filled with rage, hatred, and loneliness. Belle actually learned a lot about the way the world works, the darker side of the world, through Lily, because Lily would constantly try to talk to her as an equal, but she would constantly inform him that he can't do that. She has to call him Master Belle, and he has to refer to her as Lily, and that's it, nothing more. The reason for this is because Lily's still technically a freelancer, and so if other adventurers out there who weren't as kind as Belle, which are most of them, saw a supporter acting like they were equal with adventurers and being treated as equal, this could make it harder for her to get work. So yeah, a supporter should always be a tier below adventurers at all times. That's basically the relationship that you're supposed to have. This, of course, disturbed Belle, but he understood the situation she was in, accepted it, and continued on. He still treated her equal, like splitting everything 50-50. Or at least he tried to. Lily would consistently split the wealth 60-40 or 70-30 in her favor, obviously. She would also, whatever Belle asked her to buy items for him, when she would bring them back, she would tell them it cost double, and then she would pocket the extra cash. So yeah, their relationship was on rocky foundation, but at the same time, Belle understood the importance of a supporter once he started working with Lily. Unlike in the anime, the monsters' bodies don't just disappear after they are killed. What happens is they just become a corpse. And when they're cluttering the battlefield, it's harder for Belle to fight. So every time Belle would kill a monster, Lily would remove its corpse so he can keep fighting more monsters. And this allowed Belle more room and more access to fighting. She also was the one who was able to remove all the magic stones from the monsters, collect the drop items, and also carry any items he needed, like healing potions or antidotes for poisons. So Belle really was beginning to learn about being an adventurer and being part of a team at this point, both the good and the bad of society. Around this time, Lily actually successfully stole Belle's knife for the first time. Now, when she stole it for the first time, she tried selling it to her gnome landlord. He refused to buy it. He thought it was junk. And the reason why he considered it junk is because it literally had no edge. It could not cut anything. Lily considered that a ridiculous claim because she saw Belle cutting down monster after monster with it, but Lily didn't realize that you need to be a Hestia Familia member to use the knife. Luckily for Lily, she at the time was disguised as a male prum, and so when Ryu and Seer showed up and crossed her path by accident, Ryu immediately noticed the knife. And of course, since Ryu is friends with Belle, she attacked Lily. Lily barely got away and ran into Belle, actually, where she then immediately used her magic again to transform into a Sheenthrop, successfully survived the encounter with Ryu and Seer. Ryu was actually tricked by this, but of course Seer wasn't. Seer saw right through it and kinda threatened Lily. After that, the relationship between Belle and Lily continued on as is. Nothing really changed. Belle constantly was worried about Lily, and Lily constantly was keeping her distance from him as much as she could. Conroy, a member of the Soma Familia, and his two goons were keeping an eye on Lily and seeing the fact that she was conning people over and over again, and of course they wanted her stash of money. So they teamed up with the last guy that she conned, Geb, and the plan was to basically set up Belle as someone who's about to betray Lily, so she would then betray him, and then they would be able to trap her. I know, very complicated plan, but it worked, mostly because of Lily's inability to trust anyone. So all Geb had to do was just walk up to Belle and basically have a conversation with him while Lily could see. That's all there is to it. Belle, of course, told him to go away. He left, and then Lily and Belle went into the dungeon. Lily, now suspicious of Belle, well, she set him up. Lily convinced Belle to go to the 11th floor to hunt stronger monsters so they could collect more money, and that's when she released a bunch of monster lures. These smelly magic items attract monsters. Belle was now surrounded by orcs and imps, and was pretty much screwed. Lily knew that Belle was strong enough to take them all on, but it would take him time, enough time for her to basically run away with his Hestia knife. She was able to successfully get down to the 7th floor when Geb was able to grab her and then beat the living shit out of her. Now Geb, surprisingly enough, was actually a man of his word and was planning on splitting the reward equally, but Kano's a complete piece of shit and decides to backstab Geb. Him and his two goons decide to rip a couple of killer ants in half, and as a result, they released a pheromone that attracted other killer ants. So the room started to fill up with killer ants. Geb had a choice, either try to fight them and get away with the money, or run for his life. Geb chose to run for his life. Didn't work out for him. He went in the wrong direction and he got killed by a swarm of ants. Conroy then basically extorted Lily for everything she had, and also forced her to hand over her key to her gnome deposit box filled with gnome jewels. Conroy's plan worked a little too well, and the room started to fill up with ants. Almost all the exits were completely blocked, and so he decided to use Lily as bait to escape. Tossed her to the side, and while the ants swarmed to eat her, Conroy and his men got away. They'd be later killed by a minotaur, so it doesn't really matter. Luckily for Lily, Belle had a advisor that was actually quite caring about him, Ina. And Ina originally tried to stop Belle from having Lily be his supporter because she's from the Soma Familia and she doesn't trust the Soma Familia. This didn't work out so well, so she decided to ask, or basically beg, Eyes to help Belle during this moment. And, well, while Belle was currently fighting the orcs and the imps, he did have a chance to beat them all, but it would have taken him all day. Eyes showed up, basically wiped them all out, which then gave Belle enough time to run down to the 7th floor and save Lily from the killer ants. After successfully wiping out all the killer ants, Belle then of course went down to see if Lily was okay, and she then started to question why he came back to save her. Why did he care? What was the point of all of it? And of course Belle gave the most Belle answer, which is that she's a girl, which then made Lily start crying and insulting him. The idea that he would save anyone just because they're a girl. He's basically a pervert at that point. And so Belle's response was, well, okay, the reason is because I saved Lily because I care about Lily. And this is when Belle finally says that Lily can count on him, that he will protect her, that he will be there for her, and that he doesn't want her to be lonely anymore. Lily starts bawling, hugging Belle, and this is finally the moment when they finally connect. Lily finally understands that Belle is not like anyone she's ever met before. He's not some degenerate bastard trying to take advantage of her. He really does care about her. She actually falls in love with him at this point, and she basically dedicates her life at this point to being Belle's supporter. She decides she will always stay by his side and always be there for him and always there to protect him from the darker parts of the world because he's so naive. After this incident, that's when Belle introduced Lily to Hestia. Hestia, of course, scolds her for doing what she did, accepts the fact that Belle's forgiven her and moving forward, but basically tells Lily, from this day forward, you need to protect Belle because he's clearly going to get tricked again because that's who Belle is. Your job is to make sure he doesn't get tricked again. Lily is now presumed dead by her familia, and so now she's able to just shapeshift into different animal people as a disguise, as a way to get away with faking her own death. Or at least that was the plan. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you and have a great day.